Online.
Uh, Good afternoon, good evening if you are connected from India or whatever. And welcome to this second webinar on India of the Observatory on India of the Center for Studies on Foreign Policy, CeSPI. Is the second webinar we have. Today we have with us Luca Silippo, who is a chief economist and foresight of Finister Solutions. And we will talk about sliding doors. So basically mixing economic and geopolitical analysis to assess what could be scenarios of development of this important country. The rule of the webinar is the presentation will last 20-30 minutes. And then questions can be posted on the chat box, even during Luca's presentation. So that can inspire my interruptions of his presentation. So Luca, the floor is yours, and maybe I would also ask you to describe a little bit better what is Finister Solutions. And then, please.
Thank you very much, Sergio, for the invitation. Thank you to CeSPI, and very happy to be sharing these remarks as a European on India. So, of course, with a limited knowledge of what is happening in the terrain, but with a knowledge of what is the region and what is the ecosystem in which India is currently moving. There are a lot of things that are happening in India, so it's very interesting. As far as Finister Solution, this is a small company that I have created, continuing my assistance to corporations in their needs in terms of strategy consulting, especially on supply chains. You know better than me that supply chains are now a very complex, have become a very complex topic in the management of corporation, creating a lot of risk, because basically the world in which supply chains were created in the last 20 years does not exist anymore. It's a completely different world, and of course supply chains need to adapt, and this is what I'm doing through this boutique consultancy company, and it's fun.
Right.
Sorry?
And India can play an important role in this.
Yeah, we will talk about that. I mean, of course, it differs. You speak when I speak to some clients, they are very enthusiastic about India. Others are more wary. They have tried in the past to diversify to India and encounter several problems. Others were very happy. I have one client in South Africa who's basically very happy of its greenfield in India. They built this 12 years ago, and it works very well. So it's really a mixed bag. And I think that what we are going to say and what we're going to discuss, especially what I'm going to share, is it's very much of a mixed bag. And this is why I call this webinar Sliding Doors, because I think that there are several scenarios that are possible for India at this stage. The elections of Trump is clarifying other possible scenarios that I will briefly mention. But if you agree, maybe we can start with the presentation, so we have more time for questions afterwards, that are, to me, the most important part, because it's where there is a discussion and where I also learn a lot. So let me share my presentation, and then you tell me if you can see it. Here.
Yeah, now we can see it. Maybe you can
play it.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, slide indoors. Since we got ChatGPT, we don't have any issue anymore with backgrounds and photos because they are quite pretty if you have the right prompt ability, and we don't need Adobe Photostock or other very expensive tools to prepare presentations. So let me, this, of course, you all know, right? So India is in a moment of expansions, both economically and in political influence. It has just become the most populous nation in the world. And the economy and the international status politically of India and its administration are definitely growing. Now, we've seen that before for other countries, and we've seen also some slowing down from those trends or trends that were not sustainable. India, of course, is a quite unique country because, as I said, is the most populous country in the world. So when India moves something, then of course everybody should pay attention. But still, there are some traps that, in my opinion, would come on the way of India fully thriving and fully becoming a superpower in 10, 15 years' time. So is this growth sustainable? Really, I think it's going to be decided now. The future of India between success of what India is trying to do and mitigated success and a kind of lackluster growth. I think it's going to be decided in the next 2 or 3 years, and it will be an effect. It will be a consequence of both economics and geopolitics. That are the two things that I deal with in terms of analysis, and that I try to understand in the world. Although every day there is a new war, and a new change of regime, a new coup, a new everything. So it's a very, very volatile moment. So for India, for economics first. So you all know that India is what it is. It's a massive country. It has been deemed the more to have the most potential for development since China in 2000, and yet it has a very, very strange setup for a country of that size, a country in that region, so South Asia, and a country with that wealth, so income per capita. The singularity of India is a very minimal manufacturing sector. Here you see on the graph, on the chart to the left, India's manufacturing share of value added in red, in the bold red line. And you see that is significantly lower than any other peers in the region. And it's also lower, and this is very important, by the way, going completely the opposite side, and this is the chart on the right side, of countries with the same income per capita or similar income per capita, like Cambodia, Bangladesh, and Uzbekistan. You see that at that level of development, so with income per capita as a proxy for a level of development, manufacturing sector should increase, or the weight of manufacturing sector in the economy should increase, as we have seen with China at that time, but also Korea, of course, Japan, and at their different stage of development, while Indian manufacturing share of value added is falling. Now, you might have, and people might have, different opinion on manufacturing. Of course, it's pollution. I mean, you have a lot of pollution, and then value added sometimes for manufacturing is not that high. And so the idea of services can be a good one, specializing in services that are very advanced and exportable. Yet the first effect of not having a strong manufacturing sector is on productivity. Productivity is normally very much linked to the prevalence of the manufacturing sector in the economy, because this is where the inventions are. This is really where progress in productivity are born. And you see that this has provoked underperformance of India with respect to China in terms of productivity, of labor productivity on the left, and the almost direct effect, because you are not producing goods, you're producing services, and some of them are not tradable. So you have a trade surplus, trade deficit all the time, because for all manufacturing goods, you are forced to import. Now, in the case of India, it's manufacturing goods and energy, which is a particular not dangerous, but uncomfortable mix. So you have trade deficit, and so you have continuous pressure for a currency to depreciate, and so a balance, an economic balance that is less easy to find than with a trade surplus, where you can decide where to invest that surplus in your economy. So this is as far as the situation is concerned, and I would say historical.
Can I ask you one thing? So you know that some economists argue that maybe the path to growth of India should not follow the traditional path of manufacturing like China and other regional countries did, but to follow more the path of services, and in particular modern and more developed services. I think about the book of Rajan. So what is your opinion? I mean, you seem to present this as a weakness, and certainly it is a weakness not to have manufacturing, but on the way forward, how do you see?
I mean, I disagree with Rajan. I mean, of course, I have the utmost respect for him, but I disagree on this point. And when it doesn't matter too much what I think or not, I mean, it matters for me and those who are willing to listen to what I think. But what it matters in this case is that the Indian administration seems to disagree, to be disagreeing with him on this, because very clearly the strategy, the economic strategy of India, and we will touch upon this in the next few slides, is based on a revitalization of the manufacturing sector. So of course you can have very advanced service sector, and India can indeed promote the production of this very advanced service sector with its very educated population, English speaking, the prevalence of IT, of very good IT skills and capital. But this is, to me, without a manufacturing sector, India cannot really reach the status of superpower that Premier Modi is always mentioning, and that its population and its potential wealth would make attainable. So it's, as I said, it's really an opinion based on what I told you, in this slide particularly. So low productivity because of low manufacturing sector and trade deficit that is at this stage of development is quite unique point and quite unique point of weakness. But what matters the most is really that the Indian strategy today for growth is really focus on manufacturing. I think that this next slide shows it, and how they're trying to do so. India has tried this path or reforms to rebuild manufacturing ability and sector several times with several administrations. The last real attempt was the 2011 National Manufacturing Policy, which failed miserably and led basically to the demise of the government and the victory of Modi, the first victory of Modi, I think 2016, if I remember well. And since then, there has been nothing that was done to prop up the manufacturing sector. Take into account that 2011, 2015, the things with China were going well, relatively well for the world. We were just out of the 2008 trade crisis, which was overcame also because of what China did with fiscal and monetary policy at the beginning of 2008. And so China was undisputed in terms of the choice for manufacturing or supply chain dislocations for Western corporation. But since then, of course, the situation with China has changed, starting in 2016, going against, I would say, the direction of a market economy, and so worrying a lot of corporations that had significant stake in the economy of China, both in terms of supply chain and in terms of demand. And so India came up with this plan called Prime Minister Gati Shakti, which is a remarkable plan. First of all, it's a massive plan. So it's $1.3 trillion investment over 5 years. That's a lot if you look at finances in India. So it's a massive plan that requires not only the effort of the government and the direction of the government, but requires a massive participation of the whole world to this plan. So if you want, what is more interesting of this plan is that India is calling the world to help India to build or to rebuild infrastructure that is needed for manufacturing company to thrive, both Indian manufacturing companies and also offspring of Western corporation to be finding their new location in India. Saying basically to the nation of the world, to the nations of the world and the investors of the world, listen, we have an opportunity here. We can be the new China. Now I'm simplifying, of course, this is not what I say. And we can host your activities. Just please help us and invest money with us to change what hindered that development before. So it's a very well thought plan. It's mostly centered on multimodal connectivity, so basically infrastructure for logistics, to make sure through roads, through airports, through ports, but also through energy and other items, to make sure that India has enough, is welcoming enough these corporations, these Western corporations or new Indian corporations, for them to produce in a safe and thriving environment. And I think this has never been tried with this focus on mobility infrastructure. And so this is definitely very interesting. And to me, even looking at the results of the first 3 years is something that might really help India to achieve the status that it wants. Here, so if we have as a central argument that the PM Gati Shakti plan is successful, and this leads to India remanufacturing phase, then this is what I call the good door. as I said, this plan has started very well. FDIs in India, particularly in supply chain and mobility infrastructure, have increased a lot in the past few years. Also, if you look at the, I don't have the chart here, but you can easily find it, the India budget deficits have suffered into bracket because of direct investment by the government on this plan. But the manufacturing assets of India seem, the logistic and infrastructure asset of India seem to be improving very much. And this I speak with many corporations that actually tell me this. We didn't expect such a level of high infrastructure, especially with respect to what we have heard in the past. So definitely, to me, this would be the PM Gati Shakti would be at the core of this good door, if you want. However, there is a bad door also, and this is how the sliding door works. You know, there is always a good trajectory and a less good trajectory. And the bad door is one where you have three forces that might be slowing down this plan. The first is not really thought about very much. I don't read that very much. But the fact is that India is not the only country that wants to remanufacture. You've seen what the US is doing, for example, with the CHIPS Act or with the Inflation Reduction Act. And you see what Europe would want to do in terms of remanufacturing, also bringing back some strategic productions in Europe instead of just offshoring it to China, to Korea, to Taiwan, and to other countries. And so there might be, India might find some competition on this remanufacturing, and because of India's state in terms of income per capita, it is likely that they could not withstand too much this competition, and they would end up with the low value added manufacturing. Which is obviously not what China wants to do, or what India wants to do. What India wants to do is to attract high-end manufacturing. That is the most, of course, the strongest part of manufacturing, and also the richest one, and the more prone to productivity gain. The second problem is about the massiveness, if you pass this term, of the plan. India still needs, and here the estimate varies, from 800 billion and $1 trillion to finish the plan by 2025. So this is a lot of money. And as I told you, in the past, the money has been found, yes, by resources, or Indian government and India private resources, but also from foreign direct investment. Now, I think that there is one problem here. 60% of the foreign direct investment in India, so inflows in India, were from the US in the past 2 years. Now, the US, with Trump administration, although people think that Trump is going to put the tariff there and there, I think that it's more likely that Trump is going to find some ways of rechanneling capital. Avoiding that this capital gets out of the country, and make investors in America investing in US manufacturing assets, rather than Indian manufacturing assets. So if FDIs are necessary for PM Gati Shakti, and they are, even because India has a significant plan to reduce budget deficit, then this would be an issue. And the last point is heavy energy dependency. Now, I'm sure you know that China, before the Ukraine-Russia war, imported basically 0% of Russian oil. And now 41% of Russian oil goes to India, basically all the oil that we don't consume anymore in the West because of the embargoes and the sanctions, of course, to Russia. They consume, they import, so India import a lot from Russia and has built a significant reliance, especially for its transformation, oil transformation, and so refineries with respect to Russia. Now, this is an issue and probably a geopolitical weakness for India here. I would go to the second part in geopolitics if you don't have any questions, Sergio or anybody.
Yes, there are some economists that highlight even other bad doors, right? Elements of the bad doors. And the most important that come to my mind are education and also the concentration of the Indian industry and then the still high tariffs. So these are additional things that apparently are still an obstacle to remanufacturing.
Yeah, definitely. So I just limited to 3, just not to scare, people. I think that, I mean, education, you can see it also the good part of it. Huge STEM education labor pool, English speaking. So education, you can also see the good part that it's impossible today to find something at the scale of India where you can find that pool of very educated, skilled labor force. But of course, the transformation of skill that manufacturing would require is massive. So there is a question mark here, and you rightly pointed out. But this, I mean, I am less concerned about this than what is going to happen. Where are we going to find the money to complete the plan? I think this is a very significant uncertainty. So let me go quickly on geopolitics. Here is simpler, but also more frightening, I would say. I've been lamenting for some time the end of what is called The Art of Diplomacy. I remember this fantastic book by Henry Kissinger that I studied during my PhD. It was it was called Diplomacy. And also I play a board game that is called Diplomacy that is also very, very fun. Diplomacy is fun, and of course you have in mind this very rich people and counts and dukes and whatever doing diplomacy. So it's a very vivid imagery of diplomacy. And if you look at the world now, I mean, one of the problems that we have, I think, is that diplomacy and so compromise is actually the art of compromise is very limited. There are forces that lead to more extreme positioning and bipolarity instead of trying to find the middle, and this is in everything. And India is a good example of the art of diplomacy, for the reasons that I'm going to explain with this slide. So there is this idea of middle countries. Now, middle countries, sometimes they're called swing states, but to me, the terminology of swing state that was invented by Goldman Sachs, as many things invented by Goldman Sachs, I mean, I don't want to be mean, is not very, not perfect. I think middle countries is better. And the reason because it's better, and the reason because it matters, and what those middle countries or middle powers are, they are multi-aligned. And so they are both friends, into brackets, with China and the US, with the West and the emerging East power led by China, and they try to cherry pick what they need from those two powers. Now, US and China are forced to accept this situation because, of course, India and the other middle powers that are in this map in green are very powerful. And of course, they want US and China, they both want those countries to be their friends. And so this is a very new situation that put the basis for what a lot of people call the world multipolarity, which is an idea where we don't have two superpowers or one superpower ruling the world, but we have 15, which would be a mess, very interesting in terms of people who need to study it, but also very, very difficult to manage. In particular, India leans west in geopolitics, especially now. I mean, the agreement signed with the US 2 years ago, really showing this, and the business trip of Premier Modi to the West also indicate this. Modi had a more muted smile during the recent BRICS conference, while it looked more to the east in terms of economics. Of course, import and export markets, and also energy and arms in Russia. Once again, this is a balance. It's a very, very kind of art of diplomacy. And once again, this question is this sustainable? Here also there is a good door and a bad door. The good door is that, yes, this continues, and India becomes such a strong power economically through remanufacturing, or according to Rajan, with the high-end services, that it is impossible for the US or China to force it to really adhere and align to a camp. And so this goes well politically, and India is able to maintain this balance. Of course, there is a bad door that in this case is very, very bad, because it really would give the spark to something that can escalate globally. And this is something I want to explain it a little bit here. Once again, this is a really bad scenario, so you don't have to infer, because I spent time on it. You don't have to infer that I think that this is very likely. But, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, the next huge world conflict will start in Asia, and probably it will start in Taiwan, with Taiwan and China. I think that that what would happen in India is a more likely, although, I mean, still with very low probability, but it's more likely than the situation in India is more likely to trigger a kind of third world war scenario than China-Taiwan. Let me explain what is happening to India. India is surrounded by enemies. Pakistan, of course, historical arch rival of India, wars and of course political discussions that turn sour many times, and you know the story, so I don't need to dwell with it. China, you also know the conflicts on two sides, so Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh. Both are contended regions. Sometimes the scenario of the scene of battles, although the battles are maybe like throwing stones, or they're not really kind of very strategic attacks from one side or the other around this line of control. Recently, there has been an agreement just days before the BRICS meeting, so you can doubt that this agreement is whether this agreement is honest or not. And to the east is a new enemy, if you want, which is Bangladesh, with the fall of the Prime Minister Hasina, she was a very, very good friend of India. And she has been defeated at the election, and now she fled to India in exile. Parties, the elections are yet to be held, new elections are yet to be held. The populist, if you want, party of Bangladesh, that is quite again anti-India, is leading in the polls, but we will see what happens. Now, how this situation can evolve badly is once again with religion. Now, religion is becoming, unfortunately, again a very common excuse to wars. You have seen, you're seeing what is happening in the Middle East as we speak. For India, the religion issue is quite sensitive, because Premier Modi has been campaigning and has been also ruling in a kind of anti-Muslim mood and facts. And I think that for those who know, this 2019 Citizenship Amendment Act was a very, very important piece of legislation in India that has just now started to be implemented in some regions and some departments in India, not in all India. Is the centerpiece of legislation that through which Modi is really trying to discriminate against the Muslim. Basically, the Citizenship Amendment Act grants Indian citizen almost automatically to non-Hindu people who are residing in India, except those of Muslim religion. So it's a very, very discriminatory law. So if this law is effectively implemented, and it's not yet sure, as I told you, they are starting to implement it in smaller constituencies in India, this would cause a quick deterioration of relationship with Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now, take into account that the Indian Muslim population is mostly Sunni. Pakistan and Bangladesh, of course, are dominated by Sunni Muslim, and so this the argument there could escalate quickly. If they escalate too quickly, now India faces the threat of a war on 3/4 sides, which would be very difficult for India to manage. On one side, of course, Pakistan. Immediately as Pakistan enters the war, China is whose main ally is Pakistan, would of course try to also have an advantage from this, and would side with Pakistan. And Bangladesh might also see a way of gaining influence in the east of India. Why I said the fourth way? Because Russia which does not have a border with India, but now is dominant in energy export, might threaten or might help the Chinese, Pakistan inter-bracket friends. Of course, I mean, there is a lot to say about this friendship between China and Russia, so it's not automatic, but it might help eventually to restrain a little bit energy export to India, thereby weakening the effort of India defending from this war. Once again, this is not likely by any measure, but it is something that is there, and something that is not normally evoked when speaking about the future of India geopolitical status. And I think it is worth to think about this. Now, I spoke already too much. I would really like to receive your questions and try to answer them.
So you look a very, very interesting, fascinating, also reasoning in terms of scenarios, even if some of them are extreme, as you said, very unlikely, is stimulating. And of course, to add to the complexity, we can consider also that this is are not land boundaries, but recent elections in Maldives and Sri Lanka have brought to power parties that are not less that friendly with India. Also, then once in government, they've shown to be much more cooperative. It's very important for Sri Lanka because the debt there is Chinese, but also Indian. So to solve the economic situation, really the cooperation between China and India is relevant, is important. But then we have also Myanmar, where with the coup d'etat a couple of years ago, the political instabilities increased, particularly in the regions close to India, with rebel groups and conflicts that have also had some influence in the Northeast Indian states, bringing their additional instability and economic problems. So that's also to bear in mind. But now we have the possibility to raise questions to Luca. So please, I would encourage you to write your questions or comments in the chat box. So Luca can see them, we can convey to him yeah. Maybe yeah. Oh, okay. We have a question from Carlo Casalini. What is the bad side and the good side of this particular moment for Europe?
I've been accused of being too pessimistic on Europe, but I mean, I always reply saying, okay, in the US you have Google, in China you have Baidu as search engines. What do you have in Europe? And this is of course a kind of simple question and too simplistic, yeah, because there is of course you know, the cradle of culture, of art, and a big economic market that Europe still represents. But on the other hand, it's really revealing of how in Europe we are unable to let innovation thrive and to lead on things. I've read an article, I think last weekend, on the Financial Times, and it was on by the way, the first AI was developed in Oxford, UK. And so we had a kind of jump start on the next big thing, what has become now the next big thing, and what US and China are really fighting for. And how come we are not in that race? How come we are in that race with I mean, very nice smaller companies that, however, are not recognized or do not weigh too much on that? So I think that before saying that Europe is, of course, a nice place to be, before even saying that it remains the biggest common market in terms of demand in the whole world, and it is the home to fantastic companies that are managed very well, we have to ask ourselves this question: why we have the best universities, or I mean, that can compare with the US, of course, Oxford, Cambridge, the Imperial College of London, but also in Spain, France, with INSEAD, which is one of the top economic and business school in the whole world. So how come we have this education? Once again, we come back to this idea of education and how does it matter for the success of a country. How come we have this and we are not able to express a real innovation? So I think the good door for Europe would be that somehow we stop talking about really stupid things, I'm sorry to say, or stupid or recipes against Trump idea of tariffs that do not make sense. And here I have in mind the strange idea by Ms. Lagarde and also the European Commission about buying more US goods in order to prevent US to raise tariffs to us. Why don't we, instead of saying that, instead of buying US goods to make Trump happier so that we won't be hit by tariffs, why don't we think about who has the ability to really put in place an industrial policy? Now, industrial policy is an overused and abused term. What I mean by industrial policy is to build an environment, an industrial environment where innovation is promoted, it's firstly financed, it's promoted, and then it's embraced. Because to embrace innovation, there is something that lacks, particularly in Europe, and this idea of, failing. The failure is in Europe is very negative. In the US is the core of the innovation, is how we innovate by failure. This in Europe is not something that is there. The bad door is continuing not to do anything. The second bad door, or the second reason why we have a bad door there, is one thing that again lacks as an idea in European corporation, that is risk management. I've seen American companies, I have Chinese clients. Risk management is at the center of their preoccupation, at the center of their core strategy. There are risks that happen. There are complexification of the world environment that threaten our business. There will always be. So let's have a very proactive way of imagining them or thinking about mitigation plans before, well ahead they matter, and instead of just reacting in a continuous crisis mode, like most of European, even the large European companies do, because they have a very elementary or maybe not sophisticated enough risk management in place. So lack of risk management, lack of innovation, these are the bad doors for the EU. I cannot hear you. You are in mute.
Oh yeah, I had muted because of the noise here in Piazza Venezia. Notoriously noisy. So now let's come back to India. Thank you, Luca. But also I would like to ask the participants to post their question also, if they can on the chat box rather than the questions and answers, so everybody can see them. But I will pick up what we have now from Elisabetta Basile. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the advantages and disadvantages of remanufacturing in India?
But the advantages is, of course, trying to participate to this big supply chain reshuffling. So I do supply chain consultancy. The first question or the second question I'm asked normally at this kind of meetings is, get me out of China. And this question is badly put, in my opinion. There is not enough data in the company to decide such a thing. But anyway, there is an urge of corporations to limit their exposure to the exposure of their supply chain to China. And many countries are targeting this and saying, okay, why you're leaving China, please come to us. And this was a success story of Vietnam maybe 5 years ago, or even earlier than that. Now it's not anymore a possibility. A lot of people still talk about Vietnam as if it is an infinite country. Vietnam is producing already at 90% of its capacity. So there is, and by the way, at least 60, these are not official numbers, but it's my feeling, are used by Chinese. So I don't think that Vietnam has the capacity to be an alternative to China. The only country that at scale is an alternative to China is India. India is as big as China in terms of population, in terms of course, not in terms of geography or wealth, but basically the potential is there to really tell those corporations, we are a big country, we have a large educated population, skilled labor, STEM, and whatever we have been discussing. So please consider us when you move out to China. I think that this is the biggest advantage for India, and they have a real shot at this. No matter how unsubstantiated or illogical or uninformed the urge of a corporation to get out of China, they really want to get out of China. And in the region, they have nowhere to go at scale rather than India. The disadvantage is, of course, the risk of, India now is producing quite high-level service, a high-value-added service, at turning to manufacturing. If it's not successful to capture these segments of manufacturing that is on the high end, would push down the overall level of value added that is produced in India for the whole world, and so being actually counterproductive. So if India is trapped in producing toys or textiles that are not produced anymore by Bangladesh, or before by China, and then now by Bangladesh or by Cambodia, etc., this is not a very attractive, manufacturing is not a very attractive proposition. So this is the main disadvantage of remanufacturing. If you are not able with your strategy to capture those very high value added segments of manufacturing.
Thank you, Luca. The second question regarding Gati Shakti. So do you have an idea of how much of the plan was implemented in the first 3-4 years? And the question raised by Filippo Boni is also wonder whether the plan was inspired as a response to the Belt and Road Initiative, and in a way it was too little and too late.
Okay, so there is no official figure of completion of the plan. There was a statement by, I don't remember his name, by somebody who is dealing with the IT part of the plan, because the plan is actually, in fact, a platform that is offered to local governments, for example, when they see a bridge that is falling or that is not usable anymore. So they would put this in the platform, and then there would be people bidding to rebuild the bridge. Or and in this platform, of course, you can have also the other side. So with construction companies that are asking for financing. But the idea is that with this platform, all the works are very transparent, and all the works that need to be done are in that platform. So we have a visibility of what needs to be achieved. So because governments or private investors continuously put new things to be done, it's very difficult to have a completion rate. What this person that I heard was saying is that we still need the figure I quoted earlier, 800 billion to 1 trillion, but this would put the plan, I mean, because initially it was 1.2, 1.3 trillion US dollar. would give the false impression that not much has been done. But in fact, the plan now is much bigger than 1.3 trillion if we take all the initiatives that are going to be completed in 2025. I think that it's quite good, the advancement, especially compared to previous plans. And so I remain optimistic. On the question of Belt and Road, it's a very timely question because India has now inaugurated a new addendum to this plan, which is a kind of India One Belt, One Road idea. And this was done to attract foreign investment, especially of countries, of regions, such as Europe, that are starting to see One Belt, One Road as a kind of colonization threat. But this is just started, and they actually Premier Modi spoke about it 3 months ago, so it's very, very recent. We don't know yet what is going to be the future, but this idea of One Belt, One Road is, in fact, I don't know if it came at a second moment, but definitely it is one of the spin that the owners of the projects are putting on it.
Great, thank you, Luca. We have a third question from Anna Maria Laudini regarding the Indian diaspora. As you know, it's very large. I think it's probably the largest in the world, very important in Europe and in Italy as well. So she asking what can be the role of the diaspora in the geopolitical positioning of India and multi alignment. If the remittances and the return from the Indian diaspora can play a role in remanufacturing of it.
You know, normally you would say that, I mean, you have this brain drain idea, right? And every year I think I read somewhere that 2.5 million Indians, they leave to work overseas. So that's a big number. Although, I mean, compared to the population is, of course, I mean, relatively big. And these are the distribution of this diaspora is very balanced across the level of wages. I've read somewhere, I can try to find again the reference for this. I read that the higher part the higher value added jobs that are taken by Indian abroad now cost more than similar job in the US. So that higher part and that very top part of the distribution of the diaspora or the overseas Indian potential for remittances is very, very large. Now, of course, we have to understand how much this can be remit back to India and how much is really Indian wanting to resettle in different countries and not wanting to support the remanufacturing at home. But I assume that there is some kind of brotherhood and sisterhood idea behind the what we call in Italian madre patria, no? So the mother country, and want to help them remanufacturing. It's not clear how much, to what extent those very high-end Indian overseas would move back to maybe lead a new corporation in manufacturing. But we have to remember that there is also another half of the distribution of the overseas Indian for which the revenue or the wage is very, very low. And these are those who are really remitting the most. So in terms of remittances, and so potential for overseas Indian to finance the remanufacturing of India, I think there is unfortunately, that this could not be enough because most of the remittances are coming from low-end wages and low low income level families in India, and they're definitely not going to be reinvested in remanufacturing, but they're going to be used to eat and to manage a family.
Yeah, thank you.
I will find the reference of this article, was very interesting, and send it to you.
Thank you. So we have the last two questions. The first is from Sophia Zhu regards education inequalities. So can they be overcome, particularly the large inequalities among castes and social classes? And what could be the balance between, attracting well-trained and educated people, particularly, for example, from China, and instead of losing well-trained and educated people to other countries?
Yeah, I think that you don't have to. I don't think that India is building a remanufacturing strategy thinking that they will be able to attract employers from China or from other countries. Definitely, they think about how U.S. and Western corporation, but also Chinese corporation, can help in building this new India that Premier Modi wants to build through his Gati Shakti plan. But I don't think that there is really need for. I mean, this is a 1.4 billion people country, and with a significant share of it that is highly skilled and highly educated. I don't think that they really need people. They definitely need intellectual property. They need to build their own or to make their own intellectual property, and this requires a very skilled labor force, and this probably will come more from inside India, or people who will come back from overseas to India, or capital, but not human capital, that will be transferred to India, rather than thinking, okay, we really need to attract people. And you know that in Europe, this idea of attracting people through immigration is a very divisive one. I don't think that in India it is a question at all. And the question about inequality is, of course, very interesting. We at that level of development, inequality. I mean, it's a little bit tough answer, but this is not the central target to have an equal society in such an aggressive remanufacturing policies or strategy like India is implementing, and in a very, very short time. So we all need to recognize that this is quite massive and quite an amazing attempt by India to matter more in terms of manufacturing in the world. Inequality is not an issue at all. And the idea is that with manufacturing, especially if India is able to capture that high-end part that I mentioned before, will come next and will trickle down from a much more economically developed and politically stable country.
Thank you, Luca. The last question from Carlo Casalini goes a little bit beyond your expertise, but if you have an idea of what Italy and the European Union can do in their relations with India, and if you have any thought about the Indian Middle East Economic Corridor, IMEC.
Well, I mean, this is a question for you, Sergio. I mean, you actively work for Italian business to really look and being informed of what is happening in India. So maybe you should shed lights about what you see, speaking with the corporate sector in Italy about the opportunities to invest in India.
Yeah, that's invest in the Observatory on India and get more information and analysis on this country, and with the different possibilities of development that you have discussed with us. Thank you, Luca, again for your very interesting presentation, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions and your attention. Whenever, I mean, I can share those slides if you want, and if you have questions about those slides or about my business, you just let me know, and I would be very happy to discuss with you. In the mailing list, I see a lot of old friends, so would be happy also to reconnect with them.
Very good. Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.